This recording is on chapter 4, which is on marketing environment. So we'll begin with just understanding that as a marketer, you are always looking at the market in terms of your company's target market. And so we define target market as a group most likely to buy a firm's product. And that is also referred sometimes in your textbook as your company's target audience. So the target market's decision in terms of buying a product or a brand is influenced by several variables in the marketing environment. And so in this chapter, we're going to understand what are those external variables that have an impact on the decision, the purchase decision especially, that a consumer makes. So think about even your example or your case in terms of the decision you made to pick Penn State as a college. How was that influenced by some of the factors that were external to you as an individual? Now, what you see in this illustration in the middle is the target market. And so surrounding the target market are all of these 6 different factors. The company is sitting outside the external environment that surrounds the consumer behavior. And so the company's role here is to understand what are these different environmental variables, and then to design a marketing mix in terms of those 4 P's that we've been talking about to try and influence the purchase decision of the target audience or the target market. So let's start with the first factor, which is social factors. And so under social factors, there are 3 sub-factors: values, lifestyles, and the role of families and women. So when we talk about values, this is not the same as we discussed in chapter 1 in terms of customer value. These values are essentially your belief system, what you believe in, what you as an individual have been raised to place importance on. So and lifestyles is essentially how you structure your everyday, day-to-day activity, your day-to-day pattern. And marketers have, several different labels to categorize lifestyle. So you'll hear terms like healthy lifestyle, sporty lifestyle, outdoorsy kind of lifestyle. And then of course the role of family and women have, especially women in the workforce, has a lot of impact on the purchase behavior of a typical household. So take a look at this example by Quaker Oatmeal, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the article you read last week about how oatmeal manufacturers are trying to expand their markets. But look at how it's targeting a typical consumer who can be categorized as having a healthy lifestyle, right? So the tagline in the ad says, "Let Quaker take weight off your mind." Look at this one here. Again, here is this petition that's being supported, where you see in the US on the left-hand side, the Kraft version of mac and cheese has all of these yellow colors, while the Kraft same brand in the UK, in England, does not contain any of these artificial food dyes. So there is this petition being sort of rolled around to lobby that the company get rid of all of these artificial colors. And that again kind of ties into this target market that has a healthy lifestyle. So let's look at the basic core values that are important to marketers, or marketers kind of pay attention to, and there are 4 of them. Self-sufficiency, which is this value to do everything themselves. Upward mobility is another very core American value, which is I'm always aspiring to do better and better. So today I drive a very simple secondhand car, but in the next few years I'd like to upgrade and drive a new car, and then maybe a luxury car, etc. Work ethic is a very core human value, which is this commitment to family and to the workplace. And conformity is a very typical American value that has a big impact on the purchase behavior or the kind of brands and products we buy, which is we want to be like everyone else. And this is something that you see very typically in the teen population, in the millennial population. So if you see a group of high school students, you'll see that they kind of dress the same way, their hair looks the same, their clothes, the brands, pretty much all about the, being conforming to the group, or that's emphasis on sameness. Let's look at the second factor in the external environment, which is demographic factors. And again, I don't think this is something that I really need to elaborate on much, but everyone should be able to understand how age and your ethnicity and where you live has an impact on the kind of products and brands that you purchase. So again, marketers have divided the age categories into 4 groups, and your textbook gives you a really nice narrative on each of these 4 age groups and how they are different in terms of the types of products they buy and in the way in which they consume media. Something again related to the demographic is the ethnicity, and so marketers also recognize that these large ethnic minorities, the Hispanic Americans, the African Americans, and the Asian Americans, and how these ethnic groups can also kind of potentially present target market opportunities for companies. So if you remember last week, we looked at an example of Goya Foods, and that's a company that targets the Hispanic Americans in the economy. The third external environmental factor is economic factors. And so here we're talking about how one's distribution of consumer income, and this is disposable income, how much money does a household or an individual have, how that has an impact on the kind of products and services one can purchase. And then the 2 other factors that has to do with the state of the economy is inflation and recession. And so if you're not sure about what these 2 concepts mean, please read about it in the textbook. But there's a direct impact when the economy is in inflation and when it is in recession on how it has a bearing on the kinds of products that consumers would buy. So for example, take a look at what Abercrombie did last year. The U.S. economy has been in a recession for a few years now, and as a result of this recessionary trend, a lot of consumers were defecting. The teen consumer was defecting and moving away from Abercrombie because they couldn't see value in the high prices, the premium prices that the company was demanding. So Abercrombie was losing a lot of sales as other mall-based retailers like Forever 21 were emerging and sort of taking away the market share. So Abercrombie decided to lose the logo, and so none of their apparel from last year in spring carried the logo that the company has been so famous for. Look at this, another great example of how recessionary trends in the economy then have an impact on how companies price their products. So instead of, that dollar menu that we've been used to seeing, McDonald's very recently announced the 2 for $2 menu. And so you've got 4 items and you can choose 2 of your favorite items for only $2, right? And so again, it's still $1 a piece, but look at how through this promotion, the company is getting the consumer to pay to spend $2 instead of just picking 1 item for $1. The fourth external factor is technological factors, and this is usually where you see technology coming in and either making an existing product obsolete or changing the way consumers purchase products. So take a look at this example that I'm sharing with you on what happened when Netflix introduced this whole concept of a streaming service and what it did to the rental business that Blockbuster was famous for. So once streaming, which was the newer technology, it kind of killed, actually literally killed Blockbuster and made it go out of business. Another great example of technology and how that impacts purchase behavior is this new concept called Apple Pay, right? And so you can, I don't think I need to explain that to you, but now you know how mobile pay through your smartphone is changing the way consumers now pay for products and services. The fifth external factor has to do with the political and legal environment. And so there are tons of different federal acts that regulate the legal aspect of conducting business. And I will encourage you to, again, read about each one of these acts and what different aspect of marketing and business it regulates in the market. Related to the political and legal environment are these three very important regulatory agencies, and these are quasi-governmental agencies. The CPSC, which is the Consumer Product Safety Commission, is mostly responsible for all the product recalls that you hear. The FTC has to do with competition, and the Food and Drug Administration pretty much controls everything that has to do with food products that are meant for human consumption. So here's a great example of the CPSC, or the Consumer Product Safety Commission, doing a recall that was done just a few days ago with the McDonald's step-in activity wristbands that were causing skin irritation. The last factor has to do with competition, and this is where who your competition is, how big they are, what is their market share, has a big, again, impact on your target market's purchase decision. And so take a look again here, look at this example where Aleve, which is the advertiser here, is directly comparing itself to its competition and saying, you only need 1 versus 3 of my competition. And then lastly, I'll just end with this slide here where Dunkin' Donuts has always recognized its competition in the form of Starbucks. So I hope that in this chapter you've gotten an overview. It's a survey chapter. There isn't really much theory in it, but just a general framework of what are the different factors that will influence the decision of your target consumer to either buy your brand or not buy your brand. So thank you very much, and I hope this video lecture helps.